Alright guys, how's it going? Today I want to talk to you about a topic that, at least amongst car people, might seem kind of taboo, but I want to say that I think you should sell your first car. Now don't click off yet. I got some reasons and I got a story, because I know a lot of car people are like, oh, I've got to keep my first car forever. You'll always regret selling your first car and you'll always miss it, and that's true. I think that you can miss your first car. I certainly missed my first car. So let me tell you about my first car. So my first car was a 2000 Toyota 4Runner. I got it when I was in the later stages of 15 years old. I was about to be 16. And I actually inherited it from a relative who had sadly passed away from cancer. And the car didn't run when I got it. I had to fix it up. It sat in her driveway for a couple years, and I really loved that car. I took pride in it. I felt connected to her having it, and I wanted to keep that car forever. And a 2000 4Runner is a very good car, and you still see them on the road today. That's not a crappy car by any means, but that particular one, you know, it had 250,000 miles on it, and the paint was all faded, and it had some issues. I put a lot of money into that car. That was the other thing. I immediately was like, I'm gonna keep this car forever, and I put all my money into that car. I've got, you know, suspension for it, bushings, wheels, I added fog lights, I changed the bumpers out. Like, I did a lot of things to that car, and I had it for 2 years, and it unfortunately met its untimely demise against a tree on a mountain road. I had a bit of a brake failure. It kind of understeered off the road, rode the wall, and hit. I have a whole video about it on YouTube back when I was like 17 years old. You know, I was devastated when I lost that car, right? Because I had plans of keeping it forever. But I also did want to try other cars, right? At that time, the Scion FRS had just become the Toyota 86, and I thought that was just the coolest thing imaginable. So I really wanted the Toyota 86, but I also wanted to keep my 4Runner. So I was like, oh, I'll get a Toyota 86, and, you know, I got to keep my 4Runner nice. And it's like I was treating it like it was some show car, right? But it was a, you know, 20-year-old truck at that point. And I remember telling my parents, like, yeah, I really want to get this, you know, sports car. And they were not having it, and for good reason. A 17-year-old kid has no business. A 17-year-old kid that had no job, mind you, had no business going out and getting a 86. But I went to the dealership and I looked at them. I took some videos of it. I'll show you what they looked like back in 2017. There was that special edition orange one I really wanted, and I remember like sitting down with a salesperson. Mind you, I didn't know anything about interest or finance rates or anything like that. And I remember like the MSRP of it was like about the same as a Toyota Camry. And I was like, wait, but why are the payments double the cost of a Toyota Camry? And the guy was like, oh, well, you know, it's a sports car, and you're a young guy. I had no idea what he was talking about. But of course, now I know about interest rates and financing and all that stuff. But back then I was totally naive. Anyways, that car was really special to me, right? The 4Runner, I wanted other stuff, but I didn't want to get rid of it. And then it got taken from me. And that was kind of a canon moment for me. I didn't realize at the time, I was still devastated, and I was literally in denial. So I ended up parting that car out, because it would not have been worth going through insurance to get $3,000 for an old truck like that. So, and at that time, they weren't worth very much. Obviously, after COVID, those trucks are worth a lot more. But at that time, you know, and even in running condition, it was worth like $3,000. But I was devastated, so I got another one. I parted out the first one. I got like $2,400 out of parting out the first one. And I bought a second one, identical color. It was not two-wheel drive. It was only two-wheel drive. The first one I had was four-wheel drive, so that was a little bit of a downgrade. But I really wanted that blue color, and I was like, I gotta finish the build. There's more things I want to do. And so I got this other one, and unfortunately, the one I bought was like $3,900, and I only had $2,400 to my name. So I had to kind of beg my parents. They had set up a little bit of a college fund for me, and they weren't going to chip in like you know, really money to buy the car. They'd help me like with insurance and gas, and they'd help me like maintain it a little bit, but like to buy it, they're like, you got to buy the car with what you have, which I think is a great character building moment. But I was like, guys, this one is exactly, it took me like 3 months to find another blue one. I was like, guys, I really want this blue one. Like, it's $3,900. I just need to borrow like $1,500 from my college savings. And it was like a huge deal. They're like, you can't use that money for a car. That's for college. You really got to save for college. And I was like, guys, I'll pay it back. I really need a car to get to high school, because by that point I was driving my mom's car to high school, and it just kind of became a mess that like I didn't have a car anymore. They were like, okay, you can borrow a little bit from your college money, but you have to pay it back. And mind you, I didn't have a job. I was 17 years old, so I didn't know what I was going to do yet. but that put the drive in me to be like, okay, I need to find a way to make money, right? I gotta flip something, I gotta sell something, I need to make this money back. It was like super important. And lo and behold, the opportunity arose where a family friend, who's a nice older lady, she had this Subaru WRX, or sorry, not WRX, she had a Subaru Outback. It was a manual transmission, it only had like 60,000 miles on it, and it was a really good condition car, and she was just gonna donate it. And I was like, wait, how much are you gonna get for the donation? And she's like, oh, they're gonna give me $1,200 for it. And I was like, well, hey, I've been looking to flip a car, like, I'll buy it from you for $1,200. And it needed a little bit of work, it needed a new taillight, but otherwise it was a pretty clean car. And I was like, I'll buy it from you. And she's like, oh, really? You'd want that? I'm like, absolutely. So I asked my parents again, I'm like, can I please borrow $1,200 more to buy this Subaru? And they're like, absolutely not. Like, you know, like, they're like, we support you flipping a car, but like, you know, you gotta come up with the money. I was like, guys, I can make the money. This car is easily worth $5,000. Like, the money is there. I just need to buy this car. And they were like, and my parents are very supportive, and they've always been really encouraging for me, and the biggest cheerleaders I've ever had. And they're like, okay, you know, we trust you. We believe that what you're saying is true about the value of this car. You know, I proved them. I pulled the Carfax and the KBB. I was like, this car's worth $5,000 in the market. I promise. Like, it'll sell. And so I did. I bought that car. It literally just needed a taillight housing. I bought it on eBay for like $60. It was no big deal. And I listed the car for $7,000. And someone bought it. This guy had an Outback that had 250,000 miles on it. It blew up, and he loved Outback, so he saw mine was clean. He bought it, no questions asked, for $7,000. So I paid back the first car, I paid back the second car, and I still profited enough to buy some cool wheels for my 4Runner. And in that moment, I was like, it was great because my parents believed in me, and they were really proud of me that I was able to do it. And it was really like self-vindicating for myself that I was able to like actually pursue this and do it. And, you know, I made some money. I mean, you know, being an 17, 18-year-old kid, just making $5,000 profit on a car in a weekend was the coolest thing ever, right? And so that kind of set me down a path of, I eventually, when I turned 18, I got a job at a car dealership, and a used car dealership, and I was able to buy their wholesale vehicles. And I would save up my checks. I'm a super frugal guy. I don't really buy things for myself. I don't go shopping. I don't really, you know, whatever. So I saved up my checks, and obviously my 2000 4Runner the second one was bought and paid for, so I didn't have a car payment. So I was saving up my checks, and I was like, I gotta buy a car at a wholesale. And so I did. I bought a Lexus GX at a wholesale. I eventually ended up buying that Scion FRS, which I had wanted ever since I was a kid. I was able to get one of those for a good deal. And it totally set me down this path of buying and selling cars that I really don't think would have ever happened to me had I kept that. If that 4Runner was not totaled and I didn't have a reason to like buy another car, because there's no way my parents would have been like, okay, yeah, just keep, you know, start buying cars. Like, unless I had proved myself with that initial desperate situation, there's no way I would have gone down that path of, you know, flipping cars. And I've now owned, I'm 24, I've owned 16 cars. I have been profitable on every single car I've owned. And that kind of includes this Tesla. I'll get into another video if you want, but I do have a way of getting out of this Tesla. But anyways, yeah, so I literally bought and sold a bunch of cars, and then eventually, after like 18 months of working at the dealership, saving checks, flipping up cars, also doing a side gig, I was doing DoorDash as well, I was able to eventually buy this car brand new, which is something that I really wanted to do. I really wanted to get a new car, because by that point, you know, I had 10, 15, 20-year-old cars. Most of them were 200 plus thousand miles on them. Every single car I bought needed issues. When I was flipping the cars, I had a mechanic. I would literally just be leaving one of my cars at the mechanic shop all the time, and I would just pick up one of my other cars and drop off another. I literally always had a car at the mechanic. There was like a 6-month period where one of my cars was always at the mechanic. And I was like, you know, I don't really want that. I'd also kind of started to get into a little bit more motorsport stuff, and I was like, I want to get a fast car, and I want a reliable car. And I was really close to buying a BMW M4 that we had, but at that point, gas prices became $6 a gallon. I was like, that's insane. So I drove a Tesla on this exact road. Actually, I did an overnight test drive from Tesla to get a Model 3 long-range dual motor, just like this one. And I drove it on this road, and I was like, this is amazing. the dynamics of this car was great and all of that, and so I ended up pulling the trigger and buying this car. I've had this car now for 4 years and 85,000 miles, and it's been great. But again, you know, if I had been, I don't want to say burdened, but if I had kept that 4Runner, I would have never sold it. Because, like, you know, how do you sell a car that you inherited and it runs good? And, you know, I could have never sold that car. And so now being 24, that car would have been 25 years old, and it would have started having old car problems. You start getting into parts availability, just rubber seals cracking. And I was super OCD about that car. So I would have just been pouring money into getting it perfect. I probably would have even had it repainted. And I'm kind of glad that I wasn't burdened with this, you know, needing to keep that car in my life forever, because it just would have eventually started becoming expensive. Even when I did have it, like I said, I put all my money into that car. I did a whole bunch of suspension stuff, and, you know, I was just spending a lot of money on it. And I would have continued down that path, and I would have never bought all the other cars I've owned. I mean, you know, I can say I've had a Mercedes, I've had a Tesla, I've had, you know, all these other cars that I feel like having multiple cars makes you a better car enthusiast. It makes you a more informed consumer, really, because you can learn about all these different cars. The bottom line is, if you're in a situation where you can keep your first car and get other cars as well, then that's awesome. More power to you. Obviously, you're going to make amazing memories with your first car that, you know, whenever, if you get back in it, you'll feel young again in that car. And if you can do that, that's really awesome for you. But if you are somebody that you can only have one car, and you can't just, like, you know, park a bunch of cars at your house, or you live in an apartment, or you just can't afford to have multiple cars, then it might be time to sell your first car. Because, you know, also a lot of people's first car isn't really a very nice car. It's nice to you, right? Because it's your personal car, it's your experience, you have your memories in it. But if you have, you know, just any car that's old, it's gonna have problems, right? I have a friend who he has a really cool WRX. It's like a early 2000s WRX, and he has spent so much money keeping that car. I mean, he's literally replaced, like, the transmission a couple times, and axles, and he's done an engine swap, and he's done everything he can to keep this car on the road, and it just keeps betraying him. And from the outside, I'm like, hey man, you know, maybe it's time to move on. You know, I've tried to talk to him about that. He's like, but it's my car, and it's my first car, and I'm never gonna sell it. And you know, it's like it gets to a point where it's like, it's a 20-year-old Subaru. You know, I don't know. Like, I mean, I hate to be that guy, and I don't want to undermine, because obviously I was, like I said, I was devastated when I lost my first car, and I can totally relate to the feelings of you losing your first car. I don't want your first car to, like, stunt your growth of experiencing other platforms and learning about new things. Because, like, when I was into the 4Runners, right, I grew up with those cars. My aunt bought that car brand new. My dad bought a 3rd gen 4Runner when I was born. Literally 3rd gen 4Runners were my entire life. Like, the first 18 years of my life was all about 3rd gen 4Runners. I learned everything about them. I can literally spot, if I laid under one, I could know what it's a 3rd gen 4Runner. Like, I know those cars, right? And it got to the point where I learned everything about them. I was like, okay, I need to learn about other stuff. I need to branch out and experience other chassis, other platforms, broaden my horizons. And I've now done that. I know things about hybrid cars. I've had electric cars, like gas cars. Like, I've pretty much driven all kinds of platforms. And I can say pretty confidently that I'm a pretty well-versed person in the automotive space. I know how a lot of cars drive. I know a lot of features about lots of other brands, and people come to me for my knowledge, because they know I know a lot about all types of cars. I always have people coming up to me and say, hey, what about this car? What about that car? What are your thoughts on this? Hey, I heard this is kind of good. What do you think about that? Because people that know me know I'm pretty well versed, right? And I don't think I would have become as well versed had I stuck with my small niche platform of a vehicle and just kind of kept my mind closed, like, 3rd gen 4Runners are the best, and I would never drive any other car ever. Like, I still think 3rd gen 4Runners are great cars. I bought another one after I bought the Tesla, because I missed having one. I got a green one that I had for, I think I had it for like 6 or 8 months or something like that. Drove it around, loved it. But getting back into it, I was like, oh no, this car's so slow. Like, when I had it in high school, I was like, oh, this is the best car ever. It was faster than my friend's 4-cylinder Tacoma. So I was like, yeah, man, the V6 4Runner, it's so fast. And then I got back into the 4Runner after having a Tesla, and I was like, dude, what the heck? That is the slowest car I've ever driven. Literally, you get on the highway and floor it, and you could stay floored to the next exit and barely be breaking the speed limit. Yeah, so it's just like, that's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, the memories I had in the third and 4Runner were amazing. I loved it, but getting back into it, it almost kind of ruined it a little bit, because I was like, oh man, like, it's still cool, but it's like not as good as I thought it was at one time. So I kind of think that, you know, have your experience with your first car, enjoy it, get the value out of the car while it's still a good working car for you. But once it kind of gets beat down, or, you know, repairs start adding up, don't be afraid to move on to something new. Moving on is not a sign of weakness, of, oh, you can't, you know, you're not good enough to keep up that car. It's like, moving on is an intelligent thing, it's a growth thing, and you should take that opportunity if it presents itself to you. So I know I kind of babbled on in this video, and if you stuck through to the end, I appreciate you. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions. I'd love to hear what your first car is. If you got a new car as a first car, or you bought a car older than you, I'd love to hear all your stories about your first cars. We could kind of reminisce in the comments together. And if you have any other ideas for other videos you want me to see, want me to film, I'd love to hear it. And as always, please like and subscribe. Later, guys.